Myself M. Gunakar, Assistant Professor of Zoology, Government Degree College, Siddipet, Telangana State. Today, I would like to discuss excretory system in animals. I would like to discuss this system in two parts. In first part, let us discuss up to the structure of nephron. We shall start with this introduction, definition of excretory system, then different excretory organs in animals, classification of animals based on excretory system, excretion, then functions of excretory organs, kidneys as excretory organs, excretory system in humans, and let us discuss the structure of kidneys as well as the structure of nephron. In the next part, we will discuss the physiology of excretion as well as mechanism of urine formation. To start with, in every organism there are different types of metabolic activities takes place, and due to this result of metabolic activities certain waste products are formed, and they are mainly carbon dioxide, nitrogenous compounds as well as many other compounds. And carbon dioxide, as it is a gaseous substance, it will be eliminated through respiratory system, whereas nitrogenous compounds, they have to be eliminated from the body by a separate system, and this separate system is nothing but excretory system. And if these wastes are retained in the body for longer duration, they will have harmful effects, so certainly they have to be eliminated outside. Then the removal of these nitrogenous wastes from the body is called as the excretion. Now, what are the excretory organs? These excretory organs are nothing but the organs. Sometimes the tissues also functions as elimination of nitrogen for the elimination of nitrogenous waste. So the tissues or organs which are responsible for the elimination of nitrogenous waste products are called as excretory organs or excretory tissues. And this elimination of nitrogenous substances is done in two ways. Number one, by eliminating nitrogenous waste directly. This process is called excretion. And by maintaining water and ionic composition of the body fluids, and this second process is called as osmoregulation. Then, as there are different animals are present, in all the animals the process of excretion is not alike, not the same. So there are differences in the excretion, process of excretion, as well as the organs of excretion are also different in different animals. So in lower organisms, that is in invertebrates, especially in unicellular organisms, like let's say protozoans, the plasma lemma and as well as contractile vacuoles play a major role in eliminating these nitrogenous wastes. Now let us have a look at the figure of amoeba. So this is let us consider this is the figure of amoeba, and you can see a large whitish portion within the protoplasm, and this whitish portion is called as contractile vacuole, and this contractile vacuole plays a key role in elimination of nitrogenous waste. Along with the excess water, it collects the nitrogenous waste from the protoplasm or cytoplasm into the contractile vacuole, and whenever it is filled with the many substances as well as excess water, it moves backwards, and whenever it comes in contact with the plasma lemma, it bursts out, releasing all substances including nitrogenous waste substances to outside. So thus contractile vacuole helps in elimination of nitrogenous waste in almost all protozoans. Otherwise, if the contractile vacuole is absent, plasma lemma functions as the excretory organ for the elimination of nitrogenous waste through the simple process of diffusion. Now coming into the next organisms. So remaining invertebrates, if take exclusive of, or we shall exclude protozoans which are unicellular organisms. So all the metazoan invertebrates, there are three main forms of tubular excretory systems in other invertebrates. First type of system is called as the flame cell system. This is a flame cell system. And next, the Malpighian tubule system and the nephridial system. They differ because of the different anatomies of these animals, and this flame cell system is present in worms, that is helminths or flatworms. Then the nephridia are present in annelids, whereas Malpighian tubules and other such structures are present in arthropods as well as insects. They differ because of the different anatomies of these animals. A flatworm has neither a coelom nor a circulatory system. An insect has a small coelom, a large hemocoel, and an open circulatory system. Whereas in earthworm, it has a coelom, true coelom, schizocelic coelom, and closed circulatory system. Due to differences in anatomies, they excrete or they develop different types of the excretory organs and excretory systems in their evolutionary course. Let us start with the flame cell system. These flame cells, which collects material directly from the interstitial fluid across the plasma membrane of its plasma membrane. This flame cell carries these substances into the tubular cavity, and especially the cilia. Now we can look at the figure, these flame cells. So here these are a type of flame cells, and these flame cells, a ciliary bunch is present in the center. This is the ciliary bunch, and this ciliary bunch extend from the flame cell, create water current or fluid current that transport fluids down the tubule to an excretory pore, and through which this excretory pore is opened outside on the body wall. Then all the nitrogenous waste substances will be eliminated from that pore or excretory pore. So a flame cell system functions mainly in osmoregulation, since cellular wastes move into the gastrovascular cavity and out of the body by way of the mouth. So here certainly in some of the animals, they do not open outside. These excretory pore do not open outside, but they open into the alimentary canal. And as the anus is absent in these worms, the nitrogenous waste and other fluids will be eliminated outside through the mouth. Now coming to the next system, a nephridial system. So as we discussed, the nephridia are present as an excretory organs in the annelids. These nephridia are present in annelida. So how these nephridia functions, let us see. Let us have a look at the figure, and then so these are the nephridia. They are all tubular structures. Of course, there are three main types of nephridia are present in a typical example of annelid, earthworm, the segmental nephridia, micronephridia, and then the pharyngeal nephridia. So a nephridium, unlike the other two forms of excretory tubules, that is in the flame cell tubules as well as Malpighian tubules, this is open at both ends. Especially in the segmental nephridia, they open at both ends. At one end, a funnel-shaped ciliated cell called a nephrostome is present, which is immersed in coelomic fluid, and at the other end, the tubule opens to the outside of the body. each nephridium is surrounded by capillaries so that the fluid moves along the tubule, and this when materials can be exchanged between the fluid in the tubule and the blood in the capillaries. This arrangement permits fine adjustment to be made with regard to what is excreted and what is retained in the body fluids. So a nephridium functions both to remove nitrogenous waste as well as the osmoregulation. Now coming to the third system, which is called a Malpighian tubule system. So as I told you, the Malpighian tubules are mainly the organs of excretion in arthropods. That means especially the insects. A Malpighian tubule is an elongated out pocket attached between the midgut and hindgut. Now we shall have a look at the figure. Now this is a cockroach which is dissected, and you can see the Malpighian tubules here which are attached. These are the thread-like structures, Malpighian tubules. These are the thread-like structures, Malpighian tubules, which are attached between the midgut and hindgut, the junction between the midgut and hindgut, and they are closed outwardly, and they open into the alimentary canal. Other end is closed. When materials from the blood-filled open sinuses or cavities of the hemocoel enter the tubules and carry to the alimentary canal, and from this nitrogenous substances they flow or they carried along with the undigested waste material from within the hindgut, and along with the undigested waste material they will be. So these are the Malpighian tubules here. So here these are not those. These are the Malpighian tubules. Okay, these Malpighian tubules. So they are responsible for the collection of waste from the surrounding medium, and then they carry this nitrogenous waste substances into the alimentary canal, and when the undigested wastes are eliminated outside through the rectum and anus, then these nitrogenous substances are also eliminated outside. And a Malpighian tubule functions both for the removal of nitrogenous waste and for the osmoregulation. Now if we come to the other phyla, then let us see here in mollusca there are some organs of Bojanus and Keber's organs, and in some kidneys are also present, and these kidneys are less developed compared to the vertebrates. And in Echinodermata, the modified coelomoduct functions as a kidney. Okay, we can have a look at the nephridia or kidneys that are present in a mollusk, bivalve mollusk. We can have, see here, the nephridial vessels. See, the nephridial vessels are present, and nephridial vessels, these surrounded by some nephridia-like structures are present. They are responsible for collection of nitrogenous waste, and they carry this nitrogenous waste outside through the nephridial vessels. Then, as you know, in the vertebrates, these vertebrates can be categorized into two types, anamniotes as well as amniotes. That means those possess the amniotic shell or amniotic shell is present in this, whereas this amnion is not present. That embryonic membrane amnion is not present in anamniotes, whereas an embryonic membrane is present in amniota. So in anamniota, which includes the fishes as well as the amphibians, the mesonephric kidneys are present. Kidneys are mesonephric type, whereas in amniota kidneys are metanephric type. So in vertebrates, the skin, lungs, liver and intestine, they are also excretory in function to some extent. Then classification of animals based on nitrogenous waste product. As you know, how these nitrogenous waste products are formed inside the body. As we have discussed earlier, there are number of metabolic activities takes place throughout the life in the all organisms, and out of these metabolic activities, the many products are formed, and some of the nitrogenous waste substances are also formed. These nitrogenous waste substances actually they are formed when these amino acids are undergoes oxidative deamination, and this deamination results in the formation of nitrogenous waste products. And these nitrogenous waste products, as we discussed earlier, have to be eliminated outside as early as possible. If not, it will be dangerous to the organism. Then these excess nitrogenous substances or additional nitrogenous waste substances has to be maybe excreted in any of the three forms. Number 1, ammonia. Number 2, urea. And number 3, uric acid. So based on this nitrogenous waste product or nitrogenous waste substance, all the organisms are classified into three types: ammonotelic, ureotelic organisms and uricotelic organisms. Ammonotelic means the organisms or the animals which excrete ammonia as major excretory waste product. And example, if you see the examples, the protozoans, sponges, the coelenterate, polychaete annelids, most mollusks and aquatic arthropods, bony fishes and amphibian tadpole larvae. All these amphibian tadpole larvae only, that is aquatic amphibians only, these excrete this nitrogenous waste substances in the form of ammonia. So hence these all organisms are collectively called as ammonotelic animals, and the process of elimination of nitrogenous waste in the form of ammonia is called as ammonotelism. Then coming to the ureotelic animals, the animals which excrete nitrogenous waste substances as urea as major excretory waste products, and these are called ureotelic. The mammals, amphibians, cartilaginous fishes and aquatic reptiles and annelids, these excrete urea. Then third type is uricotelic. These uricotelic animals which excrete uric acid as major excretory waste product. These are examples: terrestrial reptiles, lizards and snakes, that means lizards and snakes, birds, land snails. Most of the insects, they excrete the nitrogenous waste substances in the form of uric acid, and these animals are collectively called as uricotelic animals. And those animals which excrete urea, the process is called as ureotelism, and whereas the process of excreting nitrogenous waste substances in the form of uric acid is called as uricotelism. Then there are, in addition to these substances, there are some other excretory waste products also. They may include trimethylamine oxide, guanine, allantoin, xanthin, hypoxanthin, creatine, creatinine, etc. More than one such waste products are excreted in an individual, but because if whatever the material that is excreted in large quantity, based on that large quantity nitrogenous substances, these animals got their name, either ammonotelic, ureotelic or uricotelic. Whereas these other excretory waste products are in small quantity, they are also excreted by different animals in different situations. Then functions of excretory organs. The main primary function of excretory organs is none other than the elimination of waste from the bloodstream by production of urine. So what happens is, here if these, in especially in those animals where blood is present, so these nitrogenous waste substances are collected by the blood, and then the blood carries these nitrogenous substances to the excretory organs. So hence these wastes are found in bloodstream, and these blood carries this nitrogenous waste substances in different forms to the waste, that means excretory organs, and they perform these excretory organs. They not only function as excretory organs, but they also perform several homeostatic functions. Homeostasis means maintenance of internal constancy or internal balance in the internal body is called as homeostasis, such as number 1, they maintain volume of extracellular fluid, they maintain ionic balance in extracellular fluid, they maintain pH and osmotic concentration of the extracellular fluid. These are all additional functions of the excretory organs, and these excrete toxic metabolic byproducts such as urea, ammonia and uric acid. This is of course their main function. Now let us look at the invertebrates. As I said, the metanephric kidneys are main functional excretory organs in amniotes. Let us have a look at the excretory organs of man. In humans, the excretory system consists of a pair of kidneys, a pair of ureters, then a pair of ureters, and a urinary bladder and a urethra. So kidneys and ureters are in pairs, whereas urinary bladder and urethra are single. So these kidneys, especially the kidneys, are main excretory organs. So they are a pair of kidneys are present, and these kidneys are reddish brown bean shaped structures situated on either side. You can see here, situated on either side of the vertebral column. See, this is the vertebral column. On either side of the vertebral column, in the back side, you can see a pair of kidneys, and these pair of kidneys are present at the levels of the last thoracic vertebrate. See, this is the last thoracic vertebrate. They start from last thoracic vertebrate, that is the 12th thoracic vertebrate, and they extend up to the 3rd lumbar vertebrae. So they are between the 12th thoracic vertebra and the 3rd lumbar vertebra. They extend, and in a retroperitoneal position. Retroperitoneal means the peritoneal membrane is present only towards the ventral side, and it is not covered on the dorsal side. So if any organ, if it is covered by the peritoneal membrane only to the ventral side, then those are called as retroperitoneal organs. So best example is kidneys. If you see, the right kidney is slightly lower than the left one due to the presence of liver present over there. So the kidney measures 11 to 13 centimeters in length, and its average weight is one kidney average weight is 120 to 170 grams in man. So here you can see the outer surface. You can see. Now let us have a look at the structure of kidneys. Now you can see the structure, internal structure and in the external structure. The kidneys are here. So this is the left kidney and this is the right kidney, and right kidney is somewhat lower when compared to the left kidney because of the presence of liver. Here the liver is present. So now here you can see the cut portion of the kidney here. Inside various organs we can see, and there are, see, the blood vessels and ureters are entering. Ureter is coming out and blood vessels are entering. So here the outer surface of the kidney, see, this is the outer surface of the kidney, which is a convex one, and inner surface which is concave. So at the kidney here also, this is the convex and this is the concave. So inner surface is concave, outer surface is convex, and the deep notch is present at the concave portion, which is called as the hilum. So this is the hilum, or sometimes it is also called hilus, and through this point the renal artery and renal nerves, they enter. Renal artery and renal nerves, they enter, whereas the renal vein and ureters, they come out. Each kidney is surrounded by a tough fibrous capsule. So here you can see the capsule is present. This is the capsule. So here this is the capsule that protects its delicate inner surface. And you can see one single ureter is coming out from the hilum position of the each kidney to outside, and these ureters, they go downwards and open into the single central urinary bladder, and then the nitrogenous waste substances, they are carried by the ureter into the urinary bladder, and when the urinary bladder is filled, then that will be eliminated outside through the urethra. So if we see the internal structure of the kidney, now a longitudinal section of the kidney shows us the internal structure clearly. Here, as I told you, the internal part of the each kidney is divided into two parts. The outer cortex, here this is the cortical portion or cortex portion, and this is the medullary portion or medulla, cortex and medulla. And covering the each kidney, we have seen capsule is already present. So, and this medulla is also divided into an outer zone. So up to here, this is the outer zone. Up to here, this is the outer zone, and whereas this is inner zone of the. So this is the inner zone of medulla, and this is the outer zone of medulla. Whereas when above the outer zone, there is a cortex region. Then you can see the inner medulla or the medulla is divided into multiple cone-shaped structures. Here a cone-shaped structure here, and this is also a cone-shaped structure. All these are the cone-shaped structures, and these cone-shaped structures these are the masses of tissue called renal pyramids, and they are 14 to 15 in number. And these renal pyramids are separated by the projections of the cortex. See, the cortex are projected inside between the conical pyramids or the renal pyramids, and these projections are called columns of Bertini or renal columns. The base of each pyramid, so the base of each pyramid originates at the border between the cortex and the medulla. This is the base, and this base, so this is the base of pyramid, and this base it starts from the junction of the cortex and medulla, and it projects inside, and terminates in the renal papilla. And renal papillae project into the cup-like calyces. These are the cup-like calyces here. So the cup-like calyces, and these are formed by the extensions of the funnel-shaped pelvis. So this is the pelvis. And this funnel-shaped. This makes a funnel-shaped structure here, and this is called pelvis. And as I said earlier, the hilum is opening at the concavity, and this pelvis comes out through the hilum as a ureter. Okay, this is the ureter. Then ureters, as I said earlier, these are the slender whitish tubes, each one coming out of each kidney, and they emerge from the pelvis of the kidneys, and their walls are lined with the transitional epithelium. The walls of these ureters are lined by the transitional epithelium. These ureters run downwards and open into the urinary bladder. So as I said earlier, urinary bladder is a median storage organ. It is a median storage organ where is a sac-like structure. It is situated in the lower abdominal cavity, which is a thick muscular, and it can be expanded wall. It has an expanded wall lined by transitional epithelium. See, the neck of the bladder leads into the urethra. So you can see the neck of the bladder leads into the urethra, and this urethra which has two sphincters. So an internal urethral sphincter which is made of smooth muscles, and external urethral sphincters which is made of striped muscles. And this urethra opens near the vaginal orifice in the case of females, and it opens through the penis in the case of males. So let us have a look at the nephron structure. So as I said earlier, the nephron we shall discuss today up to the nephron structure. This what is nephron. The nephron is a structural and functional unit of kidney. It is considered as a structural and functional unit of kidney, and it contains mainly two parts. One is Malpighian corpuscle and renal tubule. This Malpighian corpuscle is made up of two parts. One is Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus, whereas renal tubule is made up of three parts: proximal convoluted tubule, Henle's loop or loop of Henle, and distal convoluted tubule. So these two parts combine to form one nephron. Now if we see the nephron structure, here we can see this is a first part of the nephron, which is called Malpighian corpuscle. Malpighian corpuscle. This Malpighian corpuscle contains two structures. One is Bowman's capsule and glomerulus. How they are looking like, let us see. So this is a Malpighian corpuscle. This total structure is called as Malpighian corpuscle, and which is formed by two parts. One is a Bowman's capsule, this U-shaped Bowman's capsule, and another is glomerulus. This is a glomerulus. And which is formed by a network of the blood vessels, fine blood capillaries. So this is the Bowman's capsule, and this is the glomerulus. So combinedly they form the Malpighian corpuscle. And each kidney possesses nearly 1 million nephrons. They are also called uriniferous tubules. And as I said earlier, which are the structural and functional units, each nephron has two parts. Each nephron, this nephron, just now I told you, Malpighian corpuscle, and the renal tubule. This part of the Malpighian corpuscle, that is glomerulus, is formed by an afferent renal arteriole or afferent renal vessel, and as well as efferent renal vessel. So the capillaries which are coming from the afferent vessel like this, and then the capillaries which are coming from efferent renal vessel, they join in the within the concavity which is formed by the Bowman's capsule, and here all these they set up a network like structure, network of capillaries, and this network of capillaries which is called as glomerulus, and then surrounding the each glomerulus in a nephron there is a close proximity a Bowman's capsule. This is a Bowman's capsule, a cup-like Bowman's capsule is present. And here we should note one thing: a fine branch of the renal artery which is called afferent renal arteriole. The blood from the glomerulus is carried away by an efferent renal arteriole of a lesser diameter. Here the capillaries of the afferent vessel are having more diameter when compared to the capillaries of the efferent vessel. So there is a differences in the diameter of the capillaries of the afferent vessel and the diameter of the capillaries of the efferent vessel. So capillaries of the efferent vessel are smaller or their diameter is less when compared to the diameter of the capillaries of the afferent vessel. We should note down this point. We should remember this point. And the inner wall of the Bowman's capsule has some special cells which are called podocytes. These are the podocytes. So these are the podocytes. Here podocytes are present which wrap around each capillary of the glomerulus. The podocytes are arranged in such a way that in an intricate manner so as to leave some minute spaces called filtration slits or slit pores. And the endothelial cells of the capillaries have numerous pores or fenestrations, as we know, and this glomerulus along with the Bowman's capsule forms the Malpighian corpuscle, as I said earlier. Then, and this is the renal tubule. So it continues downwards. Now let us see the renal tubule, how it goes. So you can see here this is a Malpighian corpuscle and how the renal tubule goes along like a many folded structure. So the renal tubule, whose proximal portion or the portion which is near to the Malpighian tubule is called as proximal convoluted tubule. Convoluted means folded. Then next portion, the proximal convoluted tubule opens into a U-shaped structure which is called as Henle's loop. Henle's loop or loop of Henle, sometimes called it as. And then it is continued further. It is continued further by a distal convoluted tubule. That means distal means a tubule which is convoluted, which is far away from the Malpighian corpuscle. That's why it is called as distal convoluted tubule. So proximal, which is near to the Malpighian corpuscle, and distal, which is far away from the Malpighian corpuscle. These two tubules are, otherwise they are abbreviated as PCT and as well as DCT. And distal convoluted tubule, further it opens into the collecting tubule. So the collecting tubules from all the nephrons are joined together into a straight collecting duct. Then here this is a juxtaglomerular apparatus. Actually, what is this juxtaglomerular apparatus? What is the function of this juxtaglomerular apparatus? We can discuss in the when we discuss the mechanism of urine formation. Thank you.